Now make it 5 straight match reviews that, I gotta be honest with you, I didn't want to do. Dating back to that first result in Frankfurt, this team has now reverted back to the rebuilding, retooling, flawed squad that we knew. But you know what? I have time today to be negative, and certainly we'll get to that. I don't think any headline is particularly nice to anybody. So we're going to start with a positive instead. Also taking place today, the Juvenil A did win another one of those championships for La Masia. Jorge Alastui scoring in stoppage time in that one. So an exciting game for them. And Jorge Alastui, you could check out, he was out for about a year with an injury, was able to come back, was with Juvenil B for so much of this year, then scoring that winner for Juvenil A in his regular age group. Good on him. As well as Victor Barbera, who also scored in that match. And he's a youngster coming over from CF Dam this season. Not much really was known about him, but he has certainly been lighting it up for the Juvenil A's this year. The 17-year-old, now with 19 goals, having scored the 2-1 go-ahead goal at the time at least to a game that ended 3-2. 19 goals this season with 6 assists. In the last 4 years for the Juvenil A's, only Ansu Fati had a better individual season in terms of numbers, 20 goals and 9 assists for Ansu Fati in that year. And there's also 4 matches left for Barbera to leave that mark. So there are some cool things happening at La Masia. And I guess one of those positives is that I am reminded that I need to give a little more attention than I normally do to La Masia and try to figure out, yeah, there's Gabi and Nico and Pedri, but there's even more that could be coming in the coming years up to the first team. All right, so that was the good news. Now on to, let's say, the other news as we hit the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 1-0 loss to Rayo Vallecano. One is no longer a fortress, just days after 91,000 plus people filled that stadium to see the Barça Femení completely demolish Wolfsburg in Catalonia. 51,000 plus people were there to watch Barcelona fall short against Rayo Vallecano. For Barcelona, this is their 3rd straight loss at home, and courtesy of the infamous Mr. Chip on Twitter, this is the first time, at least in the Camp Nou's history, that Barcelona has lost 3 straight matches at home. And a lot of that responsibility falls on Xavi. Just like having the 4-0 at the Bernabeu will always be on his resume, being the only manager to lose 3 straight at home will be there too. Also via Twitter, Matthew Clark did have a quick addendum to that technically there was 3 straight home matches lost between 2 different seasons, that being the end of the 97-98 year and the start of 98-99, under who else but Louis van Gaal. And that was losses against Betis, Salamanca, and Mallorca. And to be honest with you, Frankfurt, Cadiz, and Rayo Vallecano, those are pretty similar names to fall to the sword by. And it must be said here too that the buck doesn't only stop with Xavi, but also those veterans. Gerard Piqué, we'll get to him in a second, was unavailable for this match due to injury, but Sergio Busquets, we used to get on Messi at times for not being the right captain or not being a captain the way the team needed and not mentally tough enough to turn that squad around. Well, now for 5 straight matches, this team knows that it's not what it was or what it's capable of being. And it's getting Kool-Aid to question, well, was this the team that was under Koeman? Is this the team we first saw under Xavi? Is this the team that was a 15-game unbeaten run? I mean, we felt like they were turning into the 15-game unbeaten run, but because now they've regressed back to the team that is still trying to figure all of itself out, I think there are questions to be asked of Busquets and Alba, and the other 2 captains being Piqué and Roberto, who's been nowhere to be found. Definitely big questions should be asked to those 4 captains and what they can do to help guide this team, a very young team, back to winning ways. I want to thank OneFootball for sponsoring this video. OneFootball is the app I use to keep myself up to date on all things FC Barcelona, everything I need to know, as well as check on every other team that Alemany could be scouting right now for a big summer transfer window. With a custom-tailored homepage, stay up to date with breaking news, live scores, and even transfer news. While on the go, you can check with matches in live time and watch videos afterwards. Use the link in the description for a free download of OneFootball on Android or iOS to put all of your football in one place. And you'll help out a tiny Barca channel too. Thanks to OneFootball again for sponsoring this video. Now back to the Barca business. 2 is stop conceding first. It's a big recipe to winning. Stop letting the other team get goals. It's a bigger recipe to winning to stop letting teams that want to defend for 90 minutes, stop letting them score first. Barcelona has now conceded first in 15 of Xavi's 32 matches. And they only came back 4 of those 15 times. For the only goal of the game, Alvaro Garcia gets the better of Serginho Dest, and I have to say, Because Sergiño Dest was so poor defensively on this goal, it was also a tremendous pass from Issy Palazón, but that is no excuse for Dest. You either have to block that, throw your body in front, because Ter Stegen has to be able to trust that his defender is going to be able to cut out that shot to the near post. And so Ter Stegen just gets caught, I guess, flat-footed, but that's because Dest wasn't able to get where he needed to be to block that shot. But Dest did come off at halftime, not only for his defensive mistakes, but also because offensively he wasn't really affecting the game in any way. He just didn't have what he needed to have in the game, and Xavi felt like at the back, they just needed something a little bit better and more solid at the back, couldn't leak any more goals. And this does show the importance of Gerard Piqué. The stat at halftime was that in the last 652 minutes for Barcelona with Piqué on the field, there was 2 goals against, one every 326 minutes. In the last 390 minutes of Barcelona without Piqué on the field, 8 goals against, one every 49 minutes. And on top of all that, when you allow teams like Cadiz or Rayo Vallecano to score first, you know what you're in for. Those are teams that are going to make you fight and fight and fight and fight and break them down. And they're built to not be broken down. 11 minutes of stoppage time was added to this game where fans, unfortunately, were throwing things on the field, and that only hurt the home team as well. So a lot of dysfunction, and that's frustrating. As I had said against Real Sociedad, I think there was major media that were a little too hypercritical of Barcelona. But this one, yeah, it's frustrating. Everybody's frustrated. The fans at the stadium, fans at home, and the players themselves. It's just not working out. 3 is fullback questions continue. On the latest pod with Kevin Williams, we discussed, we'll say, the need for more fullbacks, the need for upgrades at that position. And I did bring up the limited depth that you could look at free agents, especially free agents for, but even transfers. Who does Barcelona have the money to bring in to potentially upgrade those positions? And Kevin said it doesn't matter who, but they have to find somebody. And we saw today, once more, this team certainly does need upgrades. Whether it's Dani Alves being past his twilight, whether it's Sergiño Dest, or whether it's Jordi Alba just simply needing some kind of rest and somebody else to push him, this game was decided by the fullbacks because Rayo Vallecano decided to clog the middle of the field. Frenkie de Jong, Busquets, Gavi, well, I thought Gavi was the best of the 3, but there was something not right there with the one-touch passing, and Barcelona weren't able to break through the middle of the field. So that meant that these fullbacks for Barcelona, that being Alba and Dest, and then Araujo when he went out wide, they had to be the ones to decide the game. And up farther from that, Dembélé and then Adama Traoré late on, and Ferran Torres, they had to be the ones on the wings to unlock from outside in. They couldn't do it either. It also didn't help that a player that I defended, Eric Garcia, was off target with just his passing. And if Eric Garcia isn't completing line-breaking passes, I don't know what the point of Eric Garcia is, unfortunately. That is always my defense for him, that his progressive passings are really important to breaking teams down through the middle of the field. And it just wasn't happening today. He, like a lot of his other teammates, were not sharp on the ball. And if Barcelona isn't going to be sharp on the ball up through the middle of the field, it was an easy day for Rayo Vallecano to defend. 4 is a team fatigued. The end of the season cannot come soon enough for this squad. They are, I think I'm going to probably name tomorrow's podcast something about limping to the finish line, but that's what this Barcelona team is doing. They are limping their way to the finish line, the end of this season. Thankfully, there is just 5 more matches remaining, and they were able to get all those points in that 15-game unbeaten run. Even the January transfer guys, Ferran Torres playing much, much too many minutes. Aubameyang, it made sense, and now it hasn't really made sense. Even if he had a goal last time out, he has certainly struggled. And they were almost nowhere to be found. They just weren't getting on the ball. And even Frenkie de Jong, he looks fatigued as well. A guy that's supposed to have some of the best lungs on the entire team. It's almost crazy to me that he had almost rewritten history, that there was all those calls about, well, if they're going to sell some player in the offseason, it's got to be Frenkie de Jong. He's the one that's going to fetch the biggest amount of money so Barcelona can reinforce their squad or pay off debts. And Frenkie de Jong, over the course of those 15 games, it reversed everything. Frenkie de Jong, he's going to be back to one of the best midfielders in the world. Look at the way he bossed Real Madrid. Look at the way he bossed Atletico Madrid. He was the most physical on the field. And then in 5 matches, that narrative has completely flip-flopped the other way. And it's going to be interesting to me, I think, depending on what happens next season, how we remember this year for Frenkie de Jong. Was it a good season? Was it a bad season? Was it somewhere in the middle? I'm not too sure, and I think there's still, with 5 matches left to go, something to be written about Frenkie de Jong's season at Barcelona. And 5 is what could have been. When Barcelona are going to dictate the game the way they did, and Rayo Vallecano were going to defend for their lives, Barcelona were going to get opportunities. And it's frustrating because any of those opportunities go in the back of the net, or two of those opportunities go in the back of the net. And I don't think the narrative of whether or not Barca played well or played not changes. They were always going to have not played well in this match, even if they scored 2 or 3 goals. But the result is a thing, as I keep saying, that is going to affect the way we view this team at the end of the day, because when the results are good, the team is playing better, and there was a confidence and just a lack of intensity that they didn't have today. And that was definitely coming out in the finishing. Late in the first half, Gavi hit the underside of the post, and then Ferran Torres gets a magnificent shot over his head to go in, but it was offside. Then when Dembélé got fouled about 2 minutes later, I was reminded, as Dembélé skied one over, that Barca hasn't actually had near as many free kick opportunities without Messi this season. I saw a stat about it was 49 matches or something since they had one in that kind of position, which feels crazy, but also maybe it isn't. And then coming on, speaking of free kicks, Memphis Depay trying to make things happen, and good on him for trying to make things happen. Adama Traore probably should have scored 2 late in that game. And then it was my Dembélé, almost at the death, a shot blocked off the line by Catania, making it feel like it was never meant to be. If you have a shot blocked off the line in extra time, I guess you weren't meant to win that match, and Rayo Vallecano might probably deserve the 3 points too. The final one I end with, though, is where I think the one big mistake, if you will. Yeah, this ref had the game get away from him some, but it was always going to happen that way when you have so much physicality and so many stoppages, and Rayo Vallecano doing everything they can in the book to win at the Camp Nou, of course. But it was a penalty on Gavi, right? VAR looked at it and they said it was no penalty, but that's a penalty on Gavi. You know, I usually don't bring up referee decisions, but it's not even his decision. VAR. He was pushed in the back, that being Gavi, and he goes down. The smaller player goes down against the bigger player, so I see how there's a benefit of the doubt. It's the old Shaquille O'Neal rule, right? That a guy that big and strong is going to have some physicality. It doesn't mean that he committed the error. It's just what happens. But Gavi was definitely taken down, 100% a penalty, and Barcelona, who knows if they scored or not, but that could have very well been a difference between 1 point in that match and 0 points. And at this point, Barcelona need every point that they can get, because now, with this game in hand no longer being part of the conversation, everybody's all even on 33 matches played. There are just 5 to go. Real Betis is 6 points behind. There are now 4 teams vying for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th spots in the Liga table. 3 of those 5 matches are at home, but as I started with the first headline here, that doesn't really mean anything for Barcelona in the format they're in Catalonia. I'll leave you with one more positive. I do a first-time guest coming on the show tomorrow, so I'm being positive about that, and he's going to help me break all this down. Unfortunately for him, he'll have to help me break this down. And then midweek, to clean our palates, I will have something about other transfer targets, and I'm going to really key in on the fullback positions, because we don't really hear as many names floated out about fullbacks coming to Barcelona in the summer window, so we'll have that midweek for you. And as always, until next time, Forza Barca.